Hey, this is Derek with Copper Moon Still Company, and I'm going to show you how to make a yeast starter for your mash. You want to choose a blend of yeasts because different yeasts do different jobs. Like a bread yeast has a really great kind of bready, kind of nutty kind of flavor to it that it'll add to the mash, but it'll only ferment up to about 4% ABV before it dies. So it'll fall out of attenuation and it won't finish out fermenting your whiskey or your gin or what have you. So you want to choose a blend of yeasts, some yeasts that have a higher alcohol tolerance. I always like to go with the Lutric. This yeast is able to ferment up to 15% ABV, and it's temperature tolerant from 68 to 95 degrees. So you can get it really pretty warm, leave it in a really warm closet or something, and it still won't die. So I'll use a little bit of like a Fleischmann's bread yeast to get that old school kind of bready flavor for my whiskey. But I also want to use like a high proof yeast that'll finish it out after this yeast dies out. I try to think, what did they use for my mash historically? If I'm doing something with a lot of fruit, like a strawberry mash, I'm probably going to pick a champagne yeast because that yeast likes a lot of fruit. Like a whiskey that's like an all-grain Irish whiskey, I would probably want to figure out what have they used for like a beer that has that grain in it in the past. Did they use an ale yeast? But for this purpose, we're going to make a starter. Basically, I'm going to take some warm water, 85 to 90 degrees. About 2 tablespoons of just some table sugar. Now the great thing about making a starter is you don't have to use as much yeast. These yeasts are going to multiply by the time you go to use it. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon of that bread yeast, and I'm going to use about a quarter of a pack of this extremely strong Lutric. Making a starter for a rum, that's probably the most important mash to make a starter for, because rum doesn't have a bunch of minerals and nutrients in it. It's just sugar. And just like you and me, if you just ate sugar all day, you'd probably get pretty sick. Same thing for the yeast. So they like a lot of nutrients, they like a lot of vitamins, they like a lot of minerals. And if you're doing just a sugar mash where it's just deamura sugar and unsulfured molasses, you're going to want to add some different kinds of nutrients. They have yeast nutrient that they sell at homebrew shops. They have yeast energizer. And these have different compounds in them. Something I always like to add to my starters when I'm doing a rum is crushed up potassium tablets, just like you and me would get at CVS or Walgreens. And that should really help that yeast. About a quarter teaspoon of each of these just to get them going. Something I also like to do part way through my starter is go get a little bit of the mash that I'm making, cool it off, and add some of that to my starter. It's a great way to add a little bit more sugar to keep your yeast happy and active and energized, and kind of gets them ready for the environment that they're going into, kind of like a, putting a goldfish bag in its new tank. I'm going to put this on a stir plate, a magnetic stir plate. So this is just a little magnetic pill. I'm going to pop that in there, and that's going to help me agitate the yeast. Now the more I agitate the yeast over the next hour and a half, 2 hours while my mash is going, the more yeast I will get out of this, the more active they'll be. And they'll set in there and multiply. We basically have several hundred parts per billion of our yeast starter in there. So this will work for any mash that you want to do, be it rum, gin, vodka, And it's, like I was saying, more important for your all sugar mashes to do a starter. If you don't do a starter for your all sugar mashes, there's a really good chance that your yeast could fall out of attenuation early, and that's something you'll have to try to figure out how to troubleshoot. Thanks for watching. Little bread yeast, little Lutrikavike, little daddy, yeast if it strikes you. But this is the best way to start your mashes. Thank you.